Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. So, let me ask you, have you ever felt that cold sweat or literally forgotten your own name at the mere thought of speaking in front of a crowd? Yeah, well, you're absolutely not alone. But today, we're going to reframe that completely. Public speaking isn't some magical, innate talent that you're just born with, and it definitely doesn't have to be a terrifying ordeal. Actually, it's a completely learnable architecture for sharing your mind, and that's exactly what we are going to unpack today. And to figure this out, we're getting our blueprint from literally the absolute best in the business. That's Chris Anderson, the head of TED. This is a guy who has personally overseen some of the greatest, most viral, and most impactful presentations in modern history. If anyone knows what makes an audience tick and what makes an idea spread like wildfire, it's him. We're pulling directly from his official guide. He's got this real urgency to his philosophy. He says, and I quote, "Presentation literacy isn't an optional extra for the few. It's a core skill for the 21st century." And honestly, he hits the nail on the head here. This matters directly to you, whether you're leading a team, pitching a new project, or, simply trying to be heard in a super noisy world. Mastering this skill is really about equipping yourself for the future. So here's our blueprint for today's explainer. 1. The power of public speaking. 2. Finding your core through line. 3. Rebuilding the idea. 4. Visuals and preparation. And finally, 5. Delivering with impact. Let's build your skills step by step. All right, let's kick things right off with Section 1, the power of public speaking. The really crucial point here is understanding what your actual goal is when you step out onto that stage, your mission. It isn't to show off. Your mission is to rebuild an idea inside the listener's minds. I really want you to lean into this construction metaphor. A great talk is essentially a lasting gift, where you meticulously recreate a mental construct inside someone else's head. You are fundamentally changing their mental model of the world. Pretty powerful, right? But hey, you can't start building a house without pouring a foundation first. Which brings us to Section 2, finding your core through line. Okay, so what exactly is a through line? Well, it's basically a core theme that connects all the components of your talk, and you should be able to capture it in no more than 15 words. Just 15 words. Think of it as the essential connecting rope that every single element of your presentation has to hang on. If a piece of data, a joke, or a cool story doesn't tie directly back to this 15-word rope, you gotta cut it out. It is your ultimate filter. Now, to protect that shiny new foundation, you absolutely have to watch out for a few demolition balls. 4 common mistakes that will just instantly destroy your audience's trust before you even get going. First, making a sales pitch. Look, you're there to give to the audience, not take from them. Second, rambling pointlessly. That just disrespects their time. Third, boring organizational talk. Because trust me, nobody outside your company cares about your Q3 internal synergy milestones. And finally, putting on a fake inspiring act. Real inspiration comes from authenticity, not some huge theatrical performance. Avoid these at all costs. With our foundation poured and protected, let's move right into Section 3, rebuilding the idea. This is the fun architectural phase where we actively start constructing the presentation. Recreating an idea in someone else's head is, well, it's exactly like putting together a jigsaw puzzle, piece by piece. You've got to sequence your concepts perfectly so the audience can actively piece together your vision in their own minds. Because if you hand them the pieces all out of order, they're just going to get confused and completely tune out. So how do we actually sequence those pieces, especially when we're dealing with really complex concepts? Well, Anderson gives us this strict hierarchy of understanding. First, start where they are. Don't throw around scientific jargon they don't know. Second, spark curiosity by making them genuinely wonder why or how. Third, introduce related concepts one by one, kind of like building blocks. Fourth, use metaphors to link these new ideas to what they already understand. And fifth, lock the whole thing in with short, punchy examples. You always have to remember that knowledge can't be pushed into a brain, it has to be pulled in. But honestly, here's the real secret sauce. None of those building blocks are going to stick without this next concept: connection before construction. Before you explain anything at all, you have to earn permission through a genuine human bond. And you do this through early eye contact, real vulnerability, and careful, relevant humor. You basically have to shelve your ego entirely. If you can make them laugh or let them see your authentic self, their minds open up, making them totally receptive to your idea. All right, the idea is built. Now it's time to polish it up and get ready. Let's move on to Section 4, visuals and preparation. I really need you to absorb this golden rule. Ready? Having no slides at all is better than bad slides. Let that sink in for a second. Bad slides actively hurt your talk. The whole point of visuals is not to just copy-paste the exact same words you're speaking. Visuals need to share the things your mouth cannot, like a stunning photograph or a really complex graph, rather than just acting like a massive teleprompter repeating what you say. Now, if you are going to use slides, Chris Anderson has some pretty strict design rules to save your poor audience from, death by PowerPoint. First, use high-res images on black backgrounds for maximum visual impact. Second, ditch those boring standard corporate templates entirely. Stick to a maximum of 3 font sizes and never, ever go below a 24-point font, or they'll be squinting at the screen. And finally, kill the flashy transitions. Just reveal your points progressively so the audience is actually listening to you and not just reading ahead. Okay, but what about the actual words you're going to say out loud? You basically have 2 choices here, scripted or unscripted. If you go the scripted route, it demands massive, and I mean massive rehearsal, to avoid sounding like you're reciting a textbook. You have to know it so well that it sounds completely fresh, and you've got to be able to look up every single sentence to maintain that vital eye contact we talked about. Now, if you go unscripted, that requires really rigid mental labeling of your key points, plus solid backup plans for when you inevitably lose your place. So the really crucial takeaway here is that regardless of the path you choose, intense, repeated rehearsal is the only way to achieve natural, authentic passion on stage. You've built it, polished it, rehearsed it. Now, you actually have to step out into the physical world. Let's dive into our final section, delivering with impact. Let's take a quick look at the physical setup, because this is how you transform all that nervous adrenaline into hyper-focused energy. First off, your wardrobe. Dress one notch about your audience, avoid tight patterns that strobe weirdly on camera, and, pro tip, always wear a belt so the audio team can actually clip a microphone pack to you. Right before you go on, drink exactly 1/3 of a bottle of water. That's just enough to wet your throat, but not enough to trigger a panic bathroom emergency. And if you're using note cards, put them on a ring clip so you don't drop them everywhere if your hands start shaking. Now here's a massive tip. Even if your entire talk is unscripted, you absolutely must memorize the very beginning and the very end. Bookending your talk is critical. You gotta start with curiosity. Throw out a dramatic hook, a surprising question, or a bold statement to pull them in immediately. And then you have to end with vision. That's where you pull back and reveal the big picture implications of your idea, leaving the audience with a sense of hope, a new perspective, or maybe a clear call to action. And this whole journey brings us to why all of this matters so deeply in the first place. Anderson notes that as machines get smarter and information just multiplies exponentially all around us, hyper-specialized knowledge becomes less and less important. Instead, contextual knowledge, the ability to see the big picture and understand how all the different pieces fit together, is the ultimate human asset in a connected world. Our uniquely human ability to share these big picture ideas, to connect, and to inspire each other, that actually becomes our most valuable trait. So we've walked through the whole architecture. We poured the foundation, built the idea, polished the visuals, and we prepped the physical delivery. You literally now have the exact toolkit used by the greatest speakers in the entire world. So I have to leave you with one final question. What is your idea worth sharing? Take this toolkit, find that spark within your own life experience, and go change the world. Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer, and honestly, I cannot wait to see what you build.